Facebook, how's it going? Welcome back to Kitchen Table Meta. Now in this video, I'm going to talk about all the promo cards that got spoiled. We have the Dash Pack promos, we have the Volume 2 Tournament Pack promos, and we have the Special Pack promo, the Zamasu promo, which in fact we're going to talk about first. So that was a great segue, Dusty. Anyway, so we have the Almighty Beam Fuse Imasu, which is a 4-cost, 2 blue, 20,000 attacker with Union Patora, 2 blue on a Goku Black or Zamasu. Real quick, in case you guys aren't familiar, Union Patora means you take 2 of your guys that they tell you to, which is Goku Black and Zamasu in this situation. You stack them together, and then you put this guy on top in active mode. And so that does mean that you can essentially attack with both your threats, and then use this ability, put them together, and then have this guy come out in active mode, and you can attack with him if you'd like. Very powerful ability. It's much better than Evolve. It costs an extra card, essentially, but essentially you get an extra attack out of it, so it's pretty cool. Anyway, his auto ability says, when you play this card, if your leader is Imasu, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards and place at the bottom of their deck. Cards stacked under that card or placed in the drop area. This is actually a fantastic ability. It's essentially Beerus's ability when he comes into play, except for the fact that it doesn't KO it. It puts it underneath your opponent's deck, which is, and sometimes could be stronger. Now, we're not 100% sure how the indestructible mechanic works. But if it works on Indestructible, it's going to make it a little bit better than Beerus in that situation. Now, the downside of this card is that essentially it doesn't have double strike like Beerus, but it still has the 20,000 attacker. I can see this card essentially being used a lot in Union Patora because it's going to be one of those things in Zamasu decks where you want Goku Blacks and Zamasus in that deck anyway because they're insane when they're paired with him. And so, I can see it used a lot as like a cheap removal card, and it's fantastic at that. And so, I think this is a great special pack promo. I think it's going to be easy for people to get their hands on. I can see people running for this, unlike the one-shot Vegeta where maybe you only wanted 2 of, maybe 3 of them. I think this is going to be a 4 of. I think this is a great promo card for those Zamasu decks. But however, I'm going to give it 2 stars because I think it's great, but I think it's very limited to just Zamasu. And for that reason, I'm going to give it, again, 2 stars. Next up, we have Leap to Victory, Dark Prince Vegeta. This is a 3-cost, 2 red, 15,000 attacker with permanent. If you have 4 or less cards in your hand, this card gains double strike. When this card attacks, you may place 1 card from your hand in the drop area. If you do so, this card gains plus 5,000 power for the duration of the turn. This is, again, a fantastic card. One of those cards that's really playing off Red's new mechanic, which is if you have less cards in hand, something great happens. This effect is pretty powerful. If you have 4 or less cards, it turns into a double striker. While I think that's a very powerful effect, I feel like it's not as exciting as some of the other less cards in your hand effects, which usually reduces their cost or gives them an insane powerful ability. I think double strike is great, but just not as exciting as some of those other ones. However, his auto is very exciting. Essentially, it's going to turn on a lot of different decks. It's going to be great to essentially allow you to trigger the other cards less than cards in your hand ability. It also makes this card a 20,000 double strike attacker at 3, which is, again, very powerful. This is a card I can see being very strong in like maybe the Bibidi deck. So you can, again, give him another 5,000 off his ability. So he's at a 25,000 attacker of double strike, which also seems very strong. I think this guy is very strong, has a lot of really cool ways to be played. I can't see this. This is also a very good card for Vegeta as well. He is a Vegeta card, but he also allows you to feed the drop area with both Gokus and Vegetas, which is really cool. It makes Vegeta's Awakened side a lot better. And so, again, I think this is a great card. I don't think it's necessarily as good as like some of the insane promo cards we've seen in the future, but I think this is a good card, a good tool, and for that reason, I'm going to give it a 2-star. I think he's fantastic, but just not quite good enough for that 3-star rating. Okay, next up we have Hit, Conqueror of Time. 3-cost, 2 red, 15,000 attacker, and it has an insane auto ability that I really love. It says at the beginning of your opponent's main phase, you may place 1 red card from your hand in the drop area. If you do so, this card cannot be KO'd by your opponent's cards, skills, or battle, and does not leave the battle area for the duration of the turn. Now, again, this is a one thing we're not 100% sure what it means when it says cannot leave the battle area for the duration of turn. We don't know if that works on like put a card at the bottom of your deck. The assumption is that it will, and if so, then this card is absolutely fantastic. If not, it's still fantastic, and it's still going to be a very powerful card. It's just it will have a counter at that point. Now, why this card is super good is because with Hit, you always have lightning fast Hit, and that's a huge threat for your opponent. Your opponent, you know, once you have a hit on the field, I've had so many people use like Beerus's and kill my hits, and it's just hit's always a big threat because lightning fast hit, when it comes into play, if you evolve it on a hit, it deals 2 damage, and so that's a insane game ender. Now, like I said, the downside of that combo has always been that hit is very vulnerable and very susceptible to being, you know, killed by different effects. Now with this card, we get around that, and that is super powerful and very scary for our opponents. Now the only downside with this card is that we have to use a card out of our hand, and that card has to be red. And if we do, though, then we get this powerful ability. Something else to remember about this card is this is the first card we've seen that allows you, that has an ability at the start of, or the beginning of your opponent's main phase. And so that's very exciting. It opens up a new type of effect that we can see maybe in future sets. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about this card is that this card is an alien. It is at 15,000 power, so you can get this card off of Vados, which is, again, very powerful. And I think this is probably one of the best promo cards we've seen. And for that reason, I'm going to give this an easy 3-star and think this is going to put hit back on the map and make it very hard for opponents to get rid of this card. Next up, we have Bursting Energy Super Saiyan Vegeta, which is a 6-cost, 3 blue, 25,000 attacker with Union Patora 2 blue, 2 that says, you know, on Son Goku and Vegeta. Has double strike and says active main once per turn. Place 1 card in your life in the drop area, choose up to 2 of your energy, and switch them to active mode. And I think this is a fantastic card. I wish this card didn't cost 6 just baseline. I wish this was I mean, it does cost 4 with Union Patora, and I think that's the strength of this card, because I think by the time you get to 6, this card isn't that great, but if you can play it out on 4, it just gives the Vegeta deck another way to awaken, which I think is very exciting, because that's what that deck really needs. And then on top of that, it also readies 2 of your energy, which is really cool. So you can essentially play this out on 4, use its ability, and essentially it only costs 2, which is awesome. And then you'll have that ability every turn after that, and so that allows the Vegeta deck to do some crazy stuff. Now I can also see this card being ran in non-Vegeta decks. I can see this being ran in the green-blue Goku deck. Starter deck, Goku deck that's currently powerful. I mean, you think about that, like you think about, you know, playing out Super Saiyan Son Gotenks and then rating 2 of your energy, and then attacking with Goku and rating 2 of your energy, and then using this guy's effect and rating 2 more of your energy. And I think it's just a great card. It's going to be very strong. I can see it being run in a lot of different decks, and I think it just has the potential to have a very abusive effect as well. The only downside is, again, very expensive, but it can get around that with the Union Patora ability, which I think is neat. I think it's cool to have these powerful cards that are restricted by having to evolve them. And again, I think this is a fantastic card. For that reason, I'm going to give it a 2-star. I think if it cost 4 baseline, this would be an easy 3-star card. But I think that Union Patora effect and the fact that, honestly, the decks, there's only a few decks that are really going to truly be able to take advantage of this card. I'm going to have to give it 2 stars because of that. But I think it is a fantastic card and something I'm actually really excited about moving into the promos. Next up, we have Joyful Strike Goku Black Rose. Now, this is a 6-cost, 2 blue, 25,000 attacker with double strike, and has auto. When you play this card, if your leader card is Zamasu or Goku Black, you may inflict 2 damage to your life. If you do so, choose up to 6 of your energy and switch them to active mode. This is a really, really cool effect. It essentially makes this card free if you have those leaders. It also gives those leaders ways to awaken, which is super neat. Now, the downside with this card is that those leaders already have ways to awaken, and so they're not really going to need it too much. And because it is limited to those leaders, I don't feel like this card is going to see a whole lot of play. Now, the upside of this card is that it is a Goku Black card, so it's going to work off of a lot of the Goku Black, the Zamasu Goku Black Patoria effects. So I think it is a target. I think it might see play in that kind of situation, but I can't imagine honestly using this effect to awaken very often with those cards. Now, something to remember is that you do get the life out of this, so essentially it's like a pseudo, like in a kind of a way, when you play this card, draw 2 cards, which is a super powerful. I mean, Vegeta Princess Speed does something similar, and he's extremely powerful. So again, this guy, you know, is essentially free, possibly, can draw you 2 cards, has to be run with Zamasu or Goku Black. Those 2 leaders, again, can kind of awaken themselves. So again, I don't see this card seeing a whole lot of play. I think it's a powerful card if it could be used with other leaders, but because it's restricted to 2 leaders that can kind of already do its effect, I can't imagine this card seeing a whole lot of play. But I am excited to see what happens, because I do think it does open up the Patoria, the Goku Black Patoria. I think this is probably the best evolved card off of that, because you can essentially play this out take the 2 life, ready your energy, and then immediately Patora after that because you have him out. And so I think I'm going to give this guy 2 stars. I'm a little hesitant. I almost gave him 1 star, but I think the Patora ability is what this is going to be used for, and I think we're going to see this used with a lot of the other more powerful Imasu cards and Goku Black cards. This is going to make this card probably good enough, but we'll see. Next up, we have Determined Super Saiyan Son Gohan, 4 cost, 2 green, 15,000 attacker that has critical and auto. When you play this card, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and KO it. A good way to look at this card is this is Green's Beerus, and the downside is it loses 5,000 power and double strike to gain critical. I'm not sure if that's necessarily worth it. I think I would still probably rather just play Beerus out, but I think if you just compare it solely to Beerus in a vacuum, the card might not seem that great. But I think why this card is probably the best promo card we've seen is because it just gives like the control decks another kill. It gives another kill card. You know, it's like you have Beerus now. Now you have Gohan, which is a very good card. Then you have the 4-cost Vegeta that can do the same thing. You have Kale. Like, you're just giving them so many kill cards and card value cards that I think this card is absolutely fantastic. This is the promo that I want 4 of in this set, and I'm super excited about this card. I think it's very strong, and it looks a little deceptive when compared to Beerus, and I do think Beerus is better, but I think this card is super strong. This is also a good card for the hand destruction decks as well. Any card that has critical for those decks is great. It gives them a kill spell and allows them to pressure life with critical and making you not be able to draw cards. Again, just a fantastic card. Again, probably one of the best promos, and for that reason, I'm going to give this a 3-star. I think it's fantastic, awesome card. Next up, we have Chilling Terror Android 17. Now, this is a 3-cost, 1 green, 15,000 attacker with an insane permanent that says if your leader card is an android, the opponent cannot draw cards when their leader activates Awaken. They still can activate Awaken. That's good. That's pretty good. All right, so this effect essentially just whenever your opponent would Awaken, they don't draw their 2 cards. Now, this is a super powerful ability, and how I feel like this card was designed to kind of punish essentially stall decks or decks that essentially stop you from awakening but awaken really quick themselves. Because it's at 3 cost, I think it was one of those things that people thought, hey, the designers were like, hey, this is a 3-cost card, aggro can play this out, and that way they can pressure their opponent, make them awaken, and then when they awaken, they don't draw their cards. I think that's a powerful effect, and I think that is how the card was designed to be used. How I think it's going to be used, though, is it's going to be used by the stall decks and hand destruction decks and control decks in general to put even more pressure on your opponent. They're essentially just going to play this out and then pass turn, and then essentially make it so if you use like Result of Training or anything to awaken, you're not going to get the 2 cards. And I think this is actually going to make those decks, I think it's going to have the reverse effect, is what I'm trying to say. I think instead of aggro decks taking advantage of this card to put a lot of pressure on their opponent, control decks are going to use this to be more oppressive to decks that can already not awaken quick enough. And so that's scary to me, and I think this is a powerful ability and something that I really am worried it's going to have the negative effect, but we'll see. I think it's still going to be useful in an aggro deck, and I think that's still its intention, and I think it's still very powerful in that deck, but I think control decks are literally just going to kill it with like Beerus or the Gohan we just saw, or Vegeta, or X other reasons, other ways of doing it, and then just awaken normally. And so I'm so afraid that it's really going to punish decks that have no removal or can't awaken quickly. So for that reason, I'm going to give this card a 3-star. I think it's fantastic. It's a great card, but I just really am afraid this is going to have the reverse attention that they thought it would have. Next up, we have Occupation of Evil Frieza. This is a 4-cost, 2 yellow, 20,000 attacker with double strike. It has active main. Place 2 of your yellow battle cards other than this card on the drop area. Choose up to 1 Golden Frieza, the Resurrected Terror, from your hand and evolve this card into it. If you do so, draw 2 cards. This is a really cool way to make a kind of a lackluster super rare from last set or from set 1 relevant, and I think that's really cool. I like that promo cards can do that. I like that they're hey, you know what, that Frieza card wasn't that good, so we're gonna give it something to maybe make it a lot better. Essentially, you can play this card out on turn 4 and then use essentially this effect, so you can play a 7-drop Frieza on turn 4, which is a fantastic way to make that card better. Also, that card has when it comes to play, it essentially does a lot of effects. I'll have the card up here, I'll pop it up so you guys can see it, but essentially its big effect is that it kills all rested battle cards, which is a powerful effect, and be able to get that out on 4 is super strong. And so I think this card will see play in the Frieza's Army decks, and I think this is a great tool for those decks, and I'm really excited to play with it. Also, something else to remember, while it might seem like this card's restrictive because you have to essentially discard 2 cards when you play it, you do get those cards back. So the only downside is the cards have to be yellow cards, but I can see most Golden Frieza decks run mostly yellow cards anyway, and then splash in a little bit of blue for some shenanigans. So again, I don't think that's going to be that big of a restriction. The fact that you get those 2 cards back is just fantastic. But I think the cool part about this card, and the thing that makes it just a greatly designed card, is that it's making you discard 2 yellows, so you can't discard like objections or cards that suck. You have to discard cards that will probably, you know, would have been useful for your plan. So I think that's really neat and a great way to balance this card. And so for that reason, I'm gonna give this card 2 stars. I think it's a fantastic card. I love that it, again, makes a card that's kind of lackluster in our current set better, and I love that it's a card specifically for like the Golden Frieza and Frieza Army type decks. I just think it's a really neat, a really well designed card. Next up, we have Ginyu, the Reliable Captain. This is a 3-cost, 2 yellow, 15,000 attacker with permanent. All Ginyu in your hand gain evolve, 3 yellow, 2 Ginyu. So you can evolve, you know, essentially all Ginyu in your hand essentially can evolve on this card for 5. It says, when you play this card, choose any number of Ginyu Force from your hand other than Ginyu and play them. Such a awesome card. Again, this is a cheap card. It has a powerful effect. I think this is one of those cards. I think they really assumed or thought that the Ginyu Force decks would be a lot more powerful than they currently are. The game has very much got away from the aggro Ginyu decks and the decks that essentially you want to play out the Ginyu Force. I remember when we first started playing the game, me and my team were really on the Ginyu Force deck. We're like, man, this deck is insane. You play it with Golden Frieza. It's so cool. Then once you start to learn more and more about the game, we realize that it's just not good enough. And this is a fantastic way, again, to use promos to make those cards a lot stronger. And so I'm very excited about that. I think this is a fantastic card, and I think it's really neat. And it's going to have that effect. One of the cool things that it does is that it allows you to essentially play out the oh crap, it lets you play out the Ginyu a turn earlier, which is super powerful. I mean, you can play this card out, get your Ginyu out, super cool, and then evolve the big Ginyu on top, which is, you know, then essentially buff all those guys that you just played. Just a fantastic way, again, to make those Ginyu cards a lot better. Next up, we have the last card. I'm sorry. I'm going to give Ginyu, the Reliable Captain, a 2-star. I think he's a great way to strengthen the Ginyu decks. I think that he can really make those decks scary, and I think that the card is fantastic. I think that we need to, you know, especially with these promos or just with cards in general, we need to not forget about the old archetypes, and I think this card does that. It makes an archetype that was less known a lot better, and I'm just excited to see what it does to the metagame. Next up, the last promo we're going to talk about is Ability Unleashed Ultimate Gohan. This is a 3-cost, 2 red, 15,000 attacker that says auto. When this card attacks, you may draw 1 card. If you did not draw a card with this skill, this card gains double strike. Now, this is the November BCC promo. And again, is a really neat card. Now, what this card does is whenever it attacks, you choose. You can either draw a card. If you don't, you get double strike. Now, this is a great card for my Galactic Emperor Frieza deck that I brought out and was talking about. It's a great effect if you can protect him and keep drawing cards off of it. It's a good target for the Boo that we talked about in the Super Rare discussion. It's just a really great promo, and I'm really glad that it's going to be accessible to people through the BCC system. I think these are the type of cards that we really want to see, and I just think it's, again, just a staple. It's going to be a fantastic card, and I love him. I think he's awesome. Probably my favorite promo card that I've seen that's easily accessible. Essentially you can get it from like packs or whatever. And so I just think it's, again, just a fantastic card. I like that these BCC cards are getting they're very reliable. I mean, I'm sorry, I guess usable. Like essentially a lot of the other games I've played, when they've given out promo cards, a lot of the times, like especially for like Friday Magic type events, they're just like alternate art. They're not that great. A lot of times not that exciting. Every once in a while they will be, but these BCC cards have just been fantastic. I'm just super excited to play with them. Bardock was awesome. This card's even better than Bardock. And so again, just want to give this guy 3 stars. Thinks he's fantastic. He's gonna have a huge impact on the meta game. He's good for aggro decks. He's good for control decks. Great tempo card. Just a fantastic card. And so that's it, guys, for the promo cards. I didn't talk about the dash pack cards, but I will do another video just specifically on those dash pack cards. I thought they were in this this list of cards, but they weren't. So I will do another video on those. Again, guys, sorry for the delay on these spoiler videos. I promise I'll get them out faster. I'm so sorry. But again, guys, if you have any questions, any concerns, anything I missed about these cards, let me know in the comments. I love hearing from you guys. I love discussing these cards with you guys. It's literally my favorite thing. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.